Hey everybody, welcome back to the Rocket City Homes channel. Well, it's that time of month. Start taking a look at some of the market statistics on what's going on in Huntsville and North Alabama. Our monthly statistics come out about the 15th of the month for the previous month. So we are going to take a look and see what's going on. Up here on the top left, you can see we have it broken down into Huntsville, Madison, Athens, and Decatur. Obviously, these are all color-coded down here for you. And the first statistic that we're going to look at is for the month of September. The median sales price for Huntsville was $305,000. Madison, it was $365,000. Over in Athens, it was $322,165, and in Decatur, it was $248,500. All those are an increase compared to last year. 12 months ago, over in Huntsville, you'll notice that that's a 11% increase. It's a 14% increase over in Madison. In Athens, it's a 9%, and in Decatur, that's a 22% increase compared to just a year ago. So those are definitely, significant increase over a 12-month period. But you're starting to notice, if you kind of look from July, where we're starting to see things are definitely either dropping or mellow out. They are a little bit higher, still creeping up, but kind of looking over in Decatur over the past, we have some ups and downs, and we're kind of starting to slow those degrees out as far as the height of those waves, I should say. I want to look at the number of homes for sale currently. So interesting chart here compared to what we've seen in the past. We have, for the last several months, have seen an increase in homes coming on the market. And so, we were way down here in February. Huntsville only had 190, and right now we have 443 homes available. That's a 58% increase compared to just 12 months ago. Madison has 318 homes, Athens 309, and then Decatur 131. So there are significantly more homes on the market now than there were 12 months ago. There are significantly, I keep using that word, but there are just a large amount increase in homes from February of this year. So we are definitely starting to see more homes come on the market. And part of it is that they're just not selling quite as fast as they were. And we're going to look at that. So this is interesting. I've said this multiple times in other videos that Jodi and I have made about days on market. This thing still tells me that in Madison, in all these areas, that homes are on the market for just a couple of days, except for over in Decatur, where it's on the market for 11 days. I don't know the exact data points, how it's getting. I mean, I have an idea, but I still just don't feel like this is 100% accurate. I just don't. We're starting to see homes sit more on the market, and I realize it's statistically based. We're averaging these things out. I understand all that. I'm just saying what we're seeing is not, in my opinion, accurately reflected here. Homes are definitely taking more and more time. And that's why we have more homes on the market than we have. When we look at the month of supply, Huntsville has 1.5 months worth of supply. Madison has 2 months. Athens is sitting almost at 3 months, and Decatur sitting at about 1.5 months. Look at that increase from just a year ago. That's a 66% increase in Huntsville, 150% increase in Madison, 163 over in Athens, and then 60% in Decatur. So when we talk about inventory, what we're essentially saying is that if not one more house came on the market today, based on the current purchase rate, that in Huntsville, for example, in 1.5 months, there'd be no more homes available for sale, based on how many are selling basically per day. To see that Athens has a 3-month supply, that's getting much closer to a balanced market. 4 months, and that's absolutely a balanced market in my opinion. 2 months, 1.5 months, 1.6, definitely not. It's still a seller's market, but it's a lot better than it was when we say, look here over in January. Look at those numbers. I mean, Athens barely had 1 month supply. In Huntsville and Madison, you had a half a month of supply. So there were days. And so homes were selling extremely quickly. Buyers, which is probably 70% of our business, buyers were under so much pressure to find a house, go see that house that day, and be able to put in an offer. And that offer better be above better have what's called an escalation clause saying, hey, we're willing to go this much higher above it. Better be willing to waive certain inspections. We are big proponents, Jodi and I, of not waiving home inspections, especially in the state of Alabama, because it's a buyer beware state. But there are people that were willing to waive those inspections because they really needed a home and they had to be competitive. That was just one way to stand out. So, in January, you kind of had to do those things, right? Now, with seeing these kind of numbers, we're not waiving home inspections. We're not waiving appraisals. We're not doing escalation clauses anywhere near like we were. As a matter of fact, for the last several home purchases that we've put in for our clients, we have not had to execute a escalation clause. We have not had to purchase a home. Our buyers have not had to pay above list price. In some cases, sellers have paid for a good portion, up to $10,000 towards closing. There are rate buy-down programs that we're going to talk about in just a second. Sellers are willing to pay for those type of programs because they've got to get rid of their home, and they're starting to feel that pressure that the market's definitely shifted. So this is a big chart. I think of all the charts that we look at, this one is the most telling about what's really going on in the market now, that it's finally starting to mellow out. The other thing that we can look at, this one still shows, again, this is one of those charts that I'm like, I don't know, just don't know that I believe it 100%. It's saying everything is still selling basically at 100%, which is exactly what it was doing a year ago. Okay, we'll just go with, we'll go with that's what it is doing for right now. Price per square foot. I think another thing that's kind of interesting about this chart is things are definitely starting to slow down a little bit. We're not seeing those exponential price increases that we were. This is 13% higher than it was a year ago in Huntsville, 17% in Madison, 16%, and then 13% in Decatur. And yes, this is definitely higher, but you'll notice that things are really starting to, especially since May, things are starting to kind of mellow out. And hopefully they'll continue to mellow out for a little bit longer. So what does that really mean for the market? What's going on? So for the sellers, agents that are able to communicate with their sellers the importance about pricing and pricing correctly, those homes are still selling, right? The agent that can help the seller understand that this is not 6 months ago, this is not a year ago, and this certainly is not 18 months ago. Those sellers and agents who can put together a good pricing plan based on today's numbers are still selling their homes pretty quickly, right? They're pricing them correctly. Agents who are not able to communicate effectively with their sellers and sellers who want to be at this much higher price point because they just feel like that's what their house is worth, those homes are not selling. And that's going to be a very big disappointment because what's going to happen is those sellers are eventually going to be chasing that market down. So instead of pricing correctly from the beginning and getting a good price, they're going to be coming down and making price drops and making price drops and price drops, and they're never going to get ahead of it until they really start feeling the pain. And then finally, maybe they'll make the right amount of price drop. So again, for the ones that are pricing it correctly, homes are still selling relatively quickly. For buyers, again, probably 70% of our business, Jodi and I feel much better working with our clients. We're much more comfortable. Buyers can actually go see a home within a day or two. They don't have to see it within an hour or two. We're definitely putting in offers, as I mentioned before, not with an escalation clause, asking the sellers to pay some towards closing. Repairs, absolutely within the scope of the contract. Repairs are being made. It's just awesome. It's just a much better place to be because while interest rates are more than twice what they were 6 months ago, our buyers are not having to pay $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 above the list price, nor are they having to waive inspections. Some people were waiving appraisals so that if they were bringing additional money just to cover an appraisal difference, that's unfortunate that that's where we were for buyers, but we were, and buyers were willing to do that. It's a totally different mindset now. It's just a totally different place. So for buyers, there's a lot more protection in it for them now. I feel a lot more comfortable for our buyers. And we were educating buyers. They knew what was going on, but there were certain buyers that they had to be in a house. They needed to get into a property. So it's definitely getting better. So let's talk a little bit about interest rates and different programs. Interest rates are crazy, right? But they're not as crazy as they were in the 80s when they were close to 18%. They're certainly not as good as they've been in the last 18 months where they were down to about 3%. So we're sitting at about 7% right now. You got to talk to your lender. Get pre-approved. Talk to lenders. Jodi and I have a couple lenders that we very much enjoy working with. We've established relationships with them. It's like anything else. I know, and Jodi knows, that we can call our lenders to get updated information. And that's why we really like local lenders. It's not to say there's not a ton of great lenders out there, but the lenders that we work with, we've worked with them for a long time and we know them. They're on our phones. We can text them, hey, what's the status? So that's huge, right? But you got to ask the lenders, what kind of programs do they have for you? Whether you're doing FHA, VA, conventional, USDA, see what kind of programs they have, because every lender has some different programs. Most lenders have what's called a 2-1 rate buy down right now. It's a great program. It has to be paid for. The program has to be funded by the seller in the sense of there's a fee associated with it that the seller or the listing agent has to pay. But the great thing for the buyer is that it allows you to get an interest rate for your first year that is 2% lower than the current interest rates. For example, if current interest rates are at 7%, your first 12 months on your mortgage, they're going to be at 5%. The second year, they're going to be at 6%, right? I would like to think that within 24 months, you'll be refinancing that and you'll be closer to a 4.5% or 5.5% just standard, maybe locking in at a 5% for a 30-year fixed. It's a great program. It allows you to purchase now and not have to pay quite that high of interest rate of the 7%, right? Still better than renting in the sense that rent is 100%. You're not making any equity in that whatsoever. So talk to your lenders about that type of program. And then again, hopefully, I really do think, based on what I'm reading, what Jodi's reading, kind of what we're seeing on the news, is that probably in the next 12 to 18 months, we'll see interest rates between 4.5% and 5.5%. Obviously, there's a lot of variables that go on with that, but we think that that's where we're going to land. Anyways, hope this information was helpful for you. Hope you are doing well. And if you have any questions about the statistics that we talked about or buying or selling about homes up here in North Alabama, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right. Bye-bye.